Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday to everybody. Hope everything is going well for you. This is the time of morning that we let all of the notifications go out, let everything settle in. I wait for the clock in the other room to finish striking the top of the hour, and we let everybody get settled in. If you're watching this on uh, review, if you're catching this after the fact, go ahead and scrub past this graphic that starts here at the beginning of the old broadcast. This is just me waiting on everything to settle in, and again, wait for the clock on the wall to quit striking the top of the hour. And then when we do hit the top of the hour, I come over here and click this little button and say, hey, y'all, happy Sunday to you. Hope you got some shop time in over the weekend. Like to say, start off with Happy Mother's Day for those of you celebrating here in the U.S. Hope everybody remembered you this morning and everything is going well for you. Hope you have a great Mother's Day. Looks like we've already got pretty much a full house here. Glad to see it, and thank you to everybody who joins me for these open Q&As on Sundays. I know there isn't uh, any particular order or any particular reason for joining me, but I do appreciate you coming in. I see Dave Gatton out there in the chat. Good to see you this morning, Dave. Hope everything is going well for you. Hope you're feeling better and are good on the mend. Pardon me for all my hesitation this morning. I'm still not completely awake. So yeah, glad to see you here, Dave. Hope everything is going well for you. Really do. You are very much valued out here in the community, and it's good to see you're doing all right. Okay, let me get off of that now. Kind of get woken up here. A little bit of inside baseball and kind of I don't know, housekeeping from last week. I talked about Michael Mazalik's video last week and then said, see everybody in the chat, and then promptly did not make it. Had a little domestic accident here on the homestead and had to take the wife into urgent care where she got 6 stitches in the palm of her hand. She had a little bit of an accident outside and came out the loser on that battle. She's fine. She had to get, like I said, 6 stitches to sew up a nice gash in the palm of her hand, but she's on the mend too. So sorry about missing your premiere last week, Michael, but I will be there this week. For those of you who don't know, Michael will be premiering a video he has done on, let's see, it was loose ends and bits and pieces, I believe he called it. Yeah, bits and pieces. It's episode 37 in his series on working with the Aspire program. Fixing missing parts in 3D models and creating a rope border and several other things. So I will be there this afternoon to see that because Michael is the 3D guru. I'm here to tell you what. So hope to see everybody there. And there is a link in the description of this video to Michael's premiere this afternoon. I'll also be sharing it on Facebook as soon as we're finished live here, and you're invited to share that as well. So Bob Heltebridle, was she digging that French drain for you, Mark? No, she was coming to let me know that the FedEx guys were here with my flooring for the shop shed, which still is not installed. Film at 11. And kind of took a tumble in the middle of a gravel driveway. And one piece of gravel caught her just right and ripped open the palm of her hand. And there was a lot of fuss and feathers, obviously get the bleeding stopped and get her up off the ground and what have you. And the FedEx guy helped out with everything. He was very good about it. Helped me move everything back into the shed, and all is well now. But she's doing okay. She's all right. Little bit bruised up, skinned her knee and things like. Not the knee she had replaced, the other knee. She had her wits about her enough to know to lean the other way as she was falling. So, it's one of those things. As she tells people, she ran into a localized gravity storm. And if you're a fan of Jimmy Buffett at all, gravity storms don't give no warning signs. So, but other than that, everything's cool now. Okay, let's see. Let's get up here and get into some questions. You guys have some pretty good questions already. Just getting started. Bill Stauffer wants to know, I want to make a sign using the tiles from last week's video. For those of you who didn't catch that, that was a video on importing DXF files and some of the things you have to do to clean up a DXF file, no matter how well it was done, and how DXF files are created in the first place. And I also promoted some, let's just say, generic board game tiles from a popular board game that shall remain nameless. The letters with the scoring numbers, in small print right next to them and what have you. And there's a link to my shop down in the description below where you can go check out all those files. I have some for free and some for sale. Okay, my work surface is 12 inches wide in X and 24 inches high in Y. Designing using 24 inches in X would be easier to visualize. How do I design it in that dimension, then convert it or rotate it so tool paths can be generated to cut in the normal configuration? Well, it just so happens, Bill, I did a video on just that subject. I've made a note here to go ahead and post a link to that video down in the description below. But the short answer to that question is, set up your material with the 24 in X as you're talking about. Get your design perfected. Get your design set the way you want it. Then what you'll need to do is go back into job setup and then change the dimensions of your material to match your machine. Then come back out of job setup and select all of your vectors and rotate them 90 degrees. And I show a couple of different methods on how to do that in the video. I do kind of go off on a tangent in this video about x-axis versus y-axis, and that a lot of people refer to the gantry of the machine as the x-axis, when that's not strictly speaking true. The gantry is the gantry. The x-axis is the direction as you're standing in front of the machine in your normal operating position. Some folks, their gantry moves along the X. Some folks, like myself, the gantry moves along the Y. The gantry is the gantry. The axes are the axes. About the only one that's used interchangeable is the Z-axis. It can mean the assembly, and it can also mean the direction. But strictly speaking, the x-axis is not the gantry, and the gantry is not necessarily the x-axis. So I go off on that tangent a little bit, but I do cover doing exactly what you're doing, because my first CNC was exactly the same. So I had to change things around and rotate them and get used to doing that. Now I no longer have to do that. So I hope that answered that question. And I'll put a link to that video, I'm sorry, down in the description of this as soon as we're finished going live here. Let's see. Terry W. says, when you check the do separate last pass in the profile toolpath, is the allowance A option used to leave a cleaner finished? Let me go ahead and bring up Aspire, and then we'll screen share so that I can show what Terry is talking about. F to center up. Okay, I've just drawn a rectangle here, so I have a vector to calculate a toolpath with. And we'll go into a profile toolpath, and Terry is talking about this option down here. Do a separate last pass with the allowance A. What this does is it calculates the last pass when you're cutting through the material, or even when you're cutting part way through the material. This does not have to be all the way through. What it will do is it will create a separate, I won't say toolpath, but it will calculate this pass. If we say, for instance, using whatever dimensions I have in job setup here, it's going to take 4 passes to cut all the way through the material. If I put in an allowance here of 0.01 inches, 10,000ths of an inch, which isn't much material, if I put an allowance here, what it's going to do is make the first 3 passes cut slightly oversize. So it'll actually cut 10,000ths of an inch outside of this vector. Then when it finishes that 3rd pass, the bit will lift up out of the material, move in that 10,000ths of an inch, and then come back down and cut the full thickness of the material, that last pass, taking off that 10,000ths of an inch. And yes, that's exactly what it's done for. If you have ever had the little witness marks where you can see each pass on the edge of your material, it removes those. If you've ever had that little dimple of an entry point where the bit plunges down in and you can see that little round dimple there, if you use it in conjunction with a ramp, it will remove that little entry point dimple and give you nice, straight, smooth edges on all sides. So yes, that's exactly what a separate last pass is there to do, is to remove those little trail marks from each pass and to remove that little dimple where the bit plunges down. But that little dimple only works if you use a ramp, and I use a smooth ramp. I generally try to go at least 4 times the diameter of my cutting diameter. So here on an 1/8 inch, 4 times that would be a 1/2 inch. So I would put a distance of 0.5. And that would ramp the plunge into the material so that it's not plunging straight down and making that little dimple to begin with. So I hope that answers that question. But yes, that's exactly what that is used for, is to give you a nice clean outside edge after you're finished cutting out in the profile toolpath. So let's go ahead and take a look here and see, did anybody ask any other questions related to those two? Nope. Okay. Alrighty, so we'll jump back up here to the top. And let's see, Dave Blackburn says, I know you've been researching spindles. Have you seen any bad things about I guess it's Huanyang VFD or spindle? I haven't been researching very heavily, but only because I'm not to that point yet. I do plan on updating to a upgrading to an air-cooled spindle, not a water-cooled spindle. We have temperature extremes here everywhere from below zero up to over 110 degrees Fahrenheit. And I just don't want to mess with coolant. I don't want to deal with antifreeze in the winter and making sure I have enough water circulation in the summer. And I just don't want that hassle. I'll just go with an air-cooled spindle. Now, having said that, I have not really done a lot of research into brands. I have not heard anything bad about that particular brand. I don't know how popular they are. But then again, I've not done extensive research just yet because I'm not to that point. I have to get the CNC moved into the shed first, and then I'm going to start working toward that goal. I'm just not there yet. So I know that's kind of, not a lot of help, but that's the best I can do for you right now. But no, I've not heard anything bad about them. But then again, I haven't heard any glowing reviews either. But I haven't heard any glowing reviews towards any real VFD or spindle. So only that they're better than a router, which I would tend to agree with. So let's see. Thomas Grimm had a little bit of a inside baseball thing that this broadcast is not on my homepage in YouTube. I don't know if YouTube kind of holds back on it until a few minutes before the broadcast. But I found that on some channels as well. There are some live streams I like to watch, and I've noticed that as well, that it's 5 to 10 minutes before the live stream, it will suddenly magically appear. Now, I don't know if that's something on the YouTube side or I just need to refresh my browser or what. But I've noticed that as well. So, let's see if we have any more questions or comments here. Bum, bum, bum. Let's see. Mark John just said, "Hi Mark, just did my first text engrave with the diamond drag bit in VCarve Pro. It was easy and I had a very nice outcome." Great. Good. Glad to hear that. I have a diamond drag bit, but I've not really had much of a chance to play with it. That's something I do want to get into because I've been wanting, there are so many things I want to do. And when I finally get moved into the shop, the format of there's a little inside baseball again, the format of my channel is going to kind of change a little bit in that I am going to still focus on the software, but I'm also going to add the, physically going out and cutting the project or engraving the project to this. So some of these might be 2-part videos depending on what the project is, but I'm going to kind of condense the software version and spend a little bit less time with the breaking it down to the basics. And it's not going to be, okay, I'm kind of tongue-tied here. It's going to be less about go over to edit objects and click on this and come over and do this and do that. It's going to be create a rectangle. It's going to be less time explaining how things work and more time, let's put this design together, save G-code and go outside and cut it. So, but I've got to get to that point. I have more ideas than a tail feather on a turkey farm, I'm here to tell you. So I want to get some of these projects made and cut. Now, I know folks are going to be asking, so the answer is no. These files and projects are not going to be available for sale or download or anything, unless it's something crazy. Because I'm going to be literally showing you how to make the thing. So, it's funny. I'm not going to get into that. Never mind. Okay, so let's see. Kool-Aid says, anyone have experience using an MPG controller? I use an Xbox 360. I almost said I use a Fusion 360. I use an Xbox 360 controller to control mine. I don't have an MPG pendant controller. I've seen them. I think they're cool. That may be in the cards down the road. I don't know yet. I use the Fusion 360 controller because when I got one, I got it at my local thrift shop for like $5. And it works. So, the one thing I do know is if you're looking for an MPG controller, make sure it's compatible with the controller software you're using. If you're using Mach 3 or Mach 4, for instance, make sure it's compatible with Mach 3 or Mach 4. If you're using something like Universal G-Code Sender, make sure it's compatible with the controller that you're using. Because some MPG controllers, well, in fact, most MPG controllers, if they're made for a specific controller, they won't work with anything else. Some will, some won't. If you have something like an Axiom or a Laguna, that uses a proprietary interface and doesn't use a generic controller like Mach 3 or Mach 4 or WinCNC or Linux CNC or one of the others, you may not be able to use that pendant with that controller. And in fact, I think it's Axiom now that you really can't. You have to use their peripherals. I may be wrong on that. It may not be Axiom. But do your research before you buy, or make sure you can return it. So let's see. I was not aware of this. Michael Mazalik says, FYI, the last pass offset is set to a maximum of 35% of the diameter of the bit used. I was not aware of that. I tend to leave it, and we're talking about that allowance in the separate last pass. I tend to leave that pretty small because that's a lot of material thickness to work your way through. And depending upon how stout or robust your machine is, it could be more than it can handle. If you're using something small and lighter weight like a X-Carve, let's say for example, that may or may not be able to handle cutting 1/8 of an inch of material off of a 3/4 inch thick piece of plywood. It's kind of catch as catch can there. It may work, it may not work. So I tend to just take a small amount. And it doesn't take much to remove those witness marks or those little dimples where the bit plunged into the material. It doesn't take much at all. So, but maximum of 35%. I was not aware of that. That is good information to know. So, let's see. Michael Keymont says, MPG controllers make life much easier. I have 2 machines, but only 1 controller. Yeah, the Xbox 360 controller is... One of the things I like about it is with the 2 joysticks. Wow, Mark. With the 2 joysticks, I can control all 3 axes at once. So I can be raising the Z while I'm moving it back and off to one corner in the X and Y. So, you know, it's just one of those little things. Let's see. Michael Mazalik says, that's the reason I got from Vectric. You sound like a company man. Okay, disclaimer time. I am not a Vectric employee. I know a lot of you guys are saying Vectric should hire you to do their videos. Don't give them any ideas. I'm retired. I don't want a job. Okay. I just like their product, man. I really do. I like their product. It's simple to learn. It does what I want to do. And I just don't have the problems that I see other people having. I really don't. I know I sound like a shill for Vectric. Hashtag not sponsored. I mean, I don't work for them. So I just like the product. Let's see. Bill Stoffer, is there an air-cooled spindle available to replace a quarter-inch DeWalt router? I'm sure there's a spindle available to replace just about any router. The issue that you're going to have is, I'm assuming you're using the DeWalt 611, Bill. The issue you're going to have is the diameter of the physical spindle and router, the difference in that. I think most spindles are 80 millimeter, and I'm not sure what the diameter of the DeWalt router is, but you will undoubtedly have to find a spindle mount that you can mount to your machine if you change it out. So there is, boy, I'm trying to, there, Open Builds makes a CNC router mount. Avid CNC, which used to be CNC router parts, they make spindle mounts that you can purchase and attach to your machine, so long as your machine uses that standardized router mount bolt pattern or spindle mount bolt pattern. That's something to check into on your particular machine. I know Dave Gatton put a water-cooled spindle on his Gatton CNC, and when he designed the Z-Box on the Gatton CNC, he used that standardized bolt pattern so that you can put any spindle mount or router mount that's available off the shelf onto the Gatton CNC Z-Box. I just haven't done that yet, mainly because in the old shop I don't have 220 volt. But yeah, you can pretty much find a mount off the shelf in several locations that will mount a spindle. Now, I don't know what machine you have, but I would check with your machine manufacturer first to see do they offer one, because they know your machine best. And if you don't have that standardized bolt pattern, it's better to avoid hassle than get in and discover you've got to start drilling and tapping mounting plates and what have you. So, Kool-Aid wants to know, with Xbox controller, do you need a file driver or plug-in specific for it? Yes, you do. And what I'll do, I'll get the... Now, having said that, I use the Xbox 360 controller with Mach 3. I don't know what controller you're using, Kool-Aid. But what I'll do is I'll put a link to, in the description of this video, to the video I followed to make the Xbox work with, the Xbox 360 controller work with Mach 3. And that is over on a channel called Guru Brew. Steve did a fabulous job. He made a video on all the steps he took, all the settings in Mach 3, everything, in order to mount the, or to use the Xbox 360 controller. And it works like a champ. I've never had an issue with it. The only issue that you can possibly have is some of the aftermarket Xbox 360 controllers. Even when you enter the controller ID and serial number and all that other stuff, some of them don't want to play with Mach 3 at all. So to avoid that hassle, I went with a genuine Microsoft Xbox 360 controller, not a third-party controller, and I've never had an issue. So it does work real well. So let's see. Mark John says, does anyone know of a controller that works with the Shapeoko 3? Your best bet would be to go over to Shapeoko's website and look for a link to their support forum or support community. And that's true with every make and model of CNC. Go to the manufacturer's website and look for a link to the support forum or support community. Join it and use it. They know your machine best. Support forums and support communities the membership is made up of users like you and me who have been there, done that. And if they don't have an answer, that's when you get into tech support with your machine manufacturer. So that is, generally speaking, the go-to. My go-to anyway, is hang in that support forum and ask those questions there. Let's see. Bill Stauffer has a Next Wave Piranha. I would get a hold of Next Wave and see if they have a recommendation on a spindle that would replace your DeWalt router. And if nothing else, see, do they have a mount? So, Terry W. said, is it best to surface your spoil board first, then tram the router, then resurface the spoil board? Is there an order to this? Tram the router first, then surface the spoil board. The first part of tramming should always be getting a level plane. And I used in my video on tramming my Gatton CNC, I used a piece of glass. Don't use a huge piece of glass because the weight of the glass can cause it to sag in the center. But I used a small piece of glass from, I think, like a 5x7 picture frame from the dollar store. And it was thin stuff. And I leveled it out using dial indicator and like playing cards and slips of paper and things like that. Got it level using the dial indicator mounted in the router. Then I set about tramming the router. The reason for that is you want to get that piece of glass level in space. You're not trying to level it to your table because your table may not be level. You want a level plane to tram your router or spindle to. And you will need patience to tram your router or spindle. There's going to be a lot of loosening and retightening and shimming and taking shims out and back and forth. It took me about 4 hours to tram my router. But once I got it all tightened down and everything, got it within, I think, half a thou in nod and 1 thou in tilt. And it works. Then once you have that level, then you surface your spoil board. And after that, you should be good. Kool-Aid, thank you very much for the super chat. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for watching my videos, and thanks for joining us. Thanks very much. I really appreciate that. Custom Creative Carvings. That is a man that I envy. He just took delivery and got going with a Legacy Maverick 4x8 with auto tool changer. Excuse me, sir. This is the non-gloating section. Cool machine. Very cool machine. And he's sitting there cutting out poplar at 540 inches a minute. Yeah. Cool. So, oh, man. go hit his YouTube channel. I will put a link to his channel down in the description of this video. It's very, very cool. So, just wrote a note to myself to put a link to that after we get done live here. He says, and I love it. Yeah, well, I would too. Okay, let's see. Let me get back up here to the questions. Jeff over at JMJ Love Dance. Does anyone know of a source for a dust boot that does not travel with the Z-axis? Not right off the top of my head, but I'm sure they're out there. Does anybody have any help for Jeff there? You know of a dust boot that doesn't travel with the Z-axis? I don't know. Let's see. Lewis Denton wants to know, is the power source for spindles independent of the controllers? Yes, that's the VFD, the variable frequency drive. Excuse me. The spindles themselves are three-phase, and it's you might as well say you can't get three-phase power in a home workshop. So the VFD controls the spindle. It supplies the power. It takes standard 220 volt. There are some 120 volt out there, but it takes the standard 220/240 volt power and converts it and powers the spindle. So yes, that's exactly what it is. So let's see. And John Thompson says, yes, the spindle is controlled by the VFD, but can be controlled through Mach 3. Yes, and I'm not exactly certain how that is done. I know that you have to do there are other breakout boards that need to be done and everything. I don't have one yet, so I haven't gone that far into it. But I would like to control the spindle as well through Mach 3. And just hit cycle start, let it sit there and dwell while the spindle runs up to correct RPM, and then go. Oh, I'd love to have that set up. I'm just not there yet. So, let's see. B Danger 123. Do you have a video to hook up Xbox controller to Mach 3? I don't. But as soon as we're finished live here, I will put a link in the description of this video to the video I used to put my hook up my Xbox 360 controller. It works, and it works very, very well. And I mean, he goes through everything, all the drivers you need to download, all the settings you have to do, everything. If you follow that step by step, you'll be up and running in no time. So, let's see. Kenneth Wright, do you know anyone that has an EJ6090 CNC router? I'm having issues with mine. Just got it in and can't get help from the manufacturer. Ooh, ouch. What I would do is I would look for the EJ6090 support forum or support community. If it is popular at all, there should be one. There should be a support community out there. If you just Google EJ6090 support or EJ6090 forum, you should find it. If not, you may find some help on an open CNC forum like CNC Zone or Open Builds, or there's another one, I can't think of the name. But if you Google those search terms, you should find something. Sorry you're having issues with the manufacturer, but it's one of the reasons why I don't give machine recommendations when people ask me, what's the best machine to get? That's one thing to take into consideration, is the level of support you're going to get from the manufacturer after the sale. Some companies are great. some are non-existent. I went with a Gatton CNC kit, A, because I know Dave Gatton, B, because I know he's got a very, very good support community around him. And Dave has to do very little support himself. He's got 700, just about 700 tech support officials, in his forum taking care of the questions and answers and what have you. So, yeah, it's, it's sad, but it's true. Some people just want the money for the machine and then you're on your own. So, I do recommend to folks that you research before you buy. Now that you've bought, you're going to have to find information just wherever you can find it. And CNC Zone would be one place to start, and Open Builds will be another place to start. I mean, CNC Zone, they have people from all walks of life over there. You got everything from the thermwood operators that work for multi-million-dollar corporations down to guys like me who are using a DIY kit or a home-built CNC, kind of helping each other out. So, if you can't find a forum or support community specifically for your machine, and search Facebook. Search Facebook for your CNC, because there are a lot of groups that pop up on Facebook just because of this. So I would not be surprised to find a Facebook group that focuses on the EJ6090. So that would be another place to look. Let's see here. Dave Blackburn says CNC Nuts has a video on how to control the spindle with Mach 3 with a USB adapter and 2 wires. Excellent. Peter Pasqualo over at CNC Nuts is an excellent source. The man is brilliant, number one. He's got a lot of good content over on his channel. I'll put a link to his channel over in the description of this video as soon as we're done live. He is very, very good at what he does, and just one heck of a nice guy to boot. So if you are not subscribed to CNC Nuts, Peter Pasqualo, you're really doing yourself an injustice. Head over there and do subscribe and check out his stuff. He's very good. So let's see. Be Danger. I have a water-cooled spindle that is 220, but I only have 110 in my shop right now, and it will run my spindle at half speed. Mine is running at a max of 12,000 RPM. I am not an electrician. I am not going to even get involved in that. I just am not going to get involved with that. And I didn't have 220. I still don't have 220 in my old shed. That's why I made sure to put it in my new shed. I've got 5 currently. No, take that back. I currently have 4 30 amp circuits that are 240 volt and 1 20 amp circuit that's 240 volt. So I made sure to have that, because it's more than just a spindle that I want to be running off of 220 or 240, whatever you want to say. Okay, we're at about 45 minutes in. I'm going to do a little bit of housework here. The format of next week's live Q&A may change. I'm about ready to pull the trigger on StreamYard and do like my friend Dave Gatton has done and sit at the big kids table. I'm about done with this OBS software. It's causing a lot of issues. The audio issues we have been having in the past and the buffering issues we had last week, They are a direct result of using this OBS software, and I'm about done with it. So there may be a completely different layout next week. That may not happen until the end of the month. I'm not sure yet. I've still got to get in and play with a few things. So there may be a new look, but the content hopefully will get better. And the other advantage of having StreamYard is I can start having guests on the live Q&As. So look forward to that. We're going to try to get a few people on to talk about their experiences, and we'll see what that brings us. So a few changes, a few things coming and going. If you're going to be at the Vectric user group meeting in San Diego this September, I will be there. I will be doing a presentation. I'm not at liberty to discuss just yet, but I hope to see you there. It is September 10th and 11th in San Diego. Lewis Denton says, will I look better? Probably not. I shave when I want to, or my wife says I need to, and I get a haircut twice a year whether I need it or not. I won't look any better. But, you can't have everything. Where would you keep it all? Actually, that's kind of a dumb joke, because if you didn't have a place to keep it, you wouldn't have everything. But I digress. Anyway, so I'm going to say thank you to everyone for joining me this weekend. Thank you for taking time out of your Mother's Day. Hint, hint, call Mom. And thanks for being a part of this. Thank you to Kool-Aid for the super chat. I really do appreciate it. Thank you to everybody who has hit those donation links down in the description. Your donations are appreciated more than you know. And until next week, I don't know what next week is going to be. That gives me a few days to think about it. I'll see you this afternoon at Michael Mazalik's video, Bits and Pieces. I will be there this time. So now go out and do something cool. Go make a few chips. You got time to run a couple of toolpaths, then be back in here for Michael's video. I'll catch you all later. Thank you. Thank you again. And have a great day. Y'all take care.